Hi everyone, in this video we're going to learn about the integumentary system, which is composed of the skin, any associated glands within the skin, along with the hairs and the nails. So the first thing we want to look at is the skin. Now our skin is made up of two main layers and the hypodermis that supports it underneath. But the top layer of the skin is the epidermis. This is a very thin layer. And then the biggest layer of our skin is the dermis. Now, underneath the epidermis and the dermis is the hypodermis, which is not technically a part of the skin. So let's go ahead and look at the epidermis first. The epidermis is made up of 5 layers. It goes from the stratum corneum, stratum lucidum, stratum granulosum, then stratum spinosum, and then finally stratum basale. Now remember, the epidermis is the top layer of the skin and it's also the shortest layer. But keep in mind, you have two different types of skin in your body. You have thick skin and thin skin. Thick skins are found on your palm and the sole of your feet. These are the area that come into contact with other stuff throughout the day. If you're touching stuff, okay, and you're walking around in your feet, it's important that those areas are more thicker so it can provide your body with better protection. So in thick skin, you'll find this additional layer called the stratum lucidum in that area. You will not find the stratum lucidum in thin skin. The epidermis is made up of a lot of stratified epithelial tissues, and this is the layer that is constantly shed. And here's another example of showing you the lack of the stratum lucidum in the thin skin. Now moving into the thicker layer, or the longer layer, the bigger layer, I should say, of the skin, that would be the dermis. The dermis is composed of a lot of areolar connective tissue. And then the hypodermis is the deepest layer where the epidermis and dermis sit on top. And remember, the hypodermis isn't technically a part of your skin. It's made up of a lot of adipose connective tissue and some areolar connective tissue. So if we take a look at the model of the skin, notice how the epidermis, it's only this very short part on the top. Then you have the dermis, which is composed of the areolar connective tissue and some dense irregular connective tissue. And then finally, the hypodermis is on the bottom. You can even break up the dermis, because it's that bigger layer, into the papillary layer, which is usually areolar connective tissue, and the reticular layer of the dermis, which is usually the dense irregular connective tissue. All right, and remember, the hypodermis is not part of the skin. It's usually just made up of adipose connective tissue and some areolar connective tissue. With that said, let's go ahead and take a look at the structure that you find within the skin. You have these tiny dermal papillae right here, these little divots that you see. These dermal papillae are responsible for the formation of your fingerprints. Here you have a network of blood vessels that supply blood to and from your skin. This is the subpapillary vascular plexus. It's a network of blood vessels. Then you have the Meissner corpuscle. This is a receptor that is responsible for touch. Going back to the subpapillary vascular plexus, you'll notice that on a hotter, warmer day, there's going to be more blood supply going to your skin so that your body can cool down. So you'll get that flush that you may see in your face, sometimes on your neck and your body as well. And the reason why is you want to push that blood to the surface of your skin so that the internal core body temperature then can cool down. So here's a network of blood that goes to the dermis part of your or it goes close to the epidermis part of your skin. And then then we move into the Meissner corpuscle receptor, which is this right here, and it's responsible for your body's ability to perceive touch. Then you have the hair shaft, which is the visible part of the hair. The hair shaft is not the entire hair itself. It's only the portion of the hair that is visible to the outside. And then you actually have the hair follicle, which is beneath your skin. Here is an erector pili muscle, which you'll see it's attached to the hair follicle. Usually whenever you're cold or scared, the erector pili muscles are going to be activated, which is going to pull your hair and it's going to have your hair stand up straight. This also gives the goosebump effect. Now, in humans, this doesn't really apply to us, but in animals that live in the wild, when they are scared, having the contraction of the erector pili muscle is important because when their hair stands up, they can look bigger to other animals. And then we have the sebaceous oil gland, which is responsible for producing oil. This usually kicks in around the timing of puberty. Here we have another gland. This is the eccrine sweat gland. And if you take a look, here's another sweat gland called the apocrine sweat gland. The eccrine sweat gland is found everywhere in your body and it's there throughout and it's activated throughout the entire course of your lifetime. The apocrine sweat gland is different. These sweat glands do not become activated until someone reaches puberty, and these apocrine sweat glands are confined to the region of the axillary and the pubic region. These specific type of sweat gland is going to secrete a different chemical in their sweat that actually mixes in more with bacteria, and this is actually what gives your body that distinct smell. So apocrine sweat gland doesn't kick in until puberty. And then we also have the Pacinian corpuscle receptor. Unlike the Meissner on the top, the Pacinian corpuscle receptor responds to touch, but more importantly, it also perceives pressure, so how deep that touch is. And then we move into the hair. So, as a review, remember the hair shaft is the visible portion that is found on the surface of the skin. The hair follicle is underneath the skin. And within the hair follicle, you have the hair root. And surrounding the hair root is the bulb. Whenever you're shaving, you are only getting rid of the hair shaft. But if you were to wax or pluck the hair, you can remove the root, and sometimes you may see a portion of the bulb coming out as well. And there are nerve vessels innervating this area. So that is why it's much more painful if you were to pluck or wax your hair. Now, if we take a look at the root of the root of the hair is comprised of 3 layers. You got the cuticle layer, which is on the outside that helps protect and nourish the hair, and then the cortex and the medulla layer. The medulla is on the inside. The cortex layer is the layer that gives strength to the hair, and it is the layer that defines the texture of your hair. The medulla is the most inner layer of the hair, and the medulla is a structure that is not found in vellus hair, which are hair that is found on which are the softer hair, which is found in the body part. And then we move into the bulb of the hair, which is the bottom part surrounding the root, within the root itself as well. The matrix is the most inner layer of the hair bulb, and the matrix, in addition to the cortex, but more importantly, the matrix is where all the melanocytes in the hair are stored, which gives the pigment your hair its pigment color. As we age, some of these pigments get diminished, and we can start to see the formation of gray hair when you start to lose the pigment. The hair papilla is this region right here where nerve vessels come in and innervate the hair. So this is the hair papilla. So that is why it's painful when you pull the hair out from the root. And that wraps up the skin and the hair. Now let's move on to the nails. With the nails, you have the nail body, which is the physical portion of the nails that we can see with our eyes. Within the nail body, you have the free edge, which is the longer part that grows outwards. And then you have the lanuna of the nail. And this right here is the lanuna of the nail. The reason why we see the crescent shape of the lanuna is because underneath the lanuna is the hair, is the nail matrix. The nail matrix is the formation, is the start of the formation of the nail. And the lanuna is the portion of it that is visible from underneath the nail body. And the important thing about the lanuna is that depending on the coloring of the lanuna, it may indicate some disease that people may have in the body. Now, a clear whitish layer is considerably healthy, but sometimes if you may not have a lanuna, and again, this isn't for everyone. Some people, it's just the coloring is a little bit off, but in some cases, the absence or a super small lanuna can be linked to maybe some form of anemia, malnutrition, and maybe other health issues. Again, this is not always correct, but it has been linked. If you have a red lanula, this can be associated with some type of vascular disease, collagen vascular disease, heart failure, or maybe carbon monoxide poisoning. If your lanula is a pale bluish color, this may suggest diabetes mellitus. And if there is some other discoloration, this could indicate other conditions as well, such as kidney disease, liver disease, or psoriasis. Now, again, this does not mean that you have those conditions if your lanuna is that color. It's just suggestive. So the best thing would be to talk to your dermatologist and your doctor. And then you have the eponychium, this cuticle layer right here, which covers your nail and binds it to the skin part. A lot of the time, people remove or trim the eponychium layer in order to have this smooth area, in order for a manicure to look more nicely appeasing, etc. But having a thick cuticle layer is actually super important because it is going to be an additional trapping layer that prevents bacteria from going into the surface of your nail bed. Now, right here is the nail fold. It's just the skin surrounding the nail body. And then the nail groove is the area where your nail touches the nail fold. So it's this divot right here, which is the nail groove. Now let's take a look at the nail bed, which is the portion underneath the nail body. The nail bed is a very thin layer of skin, and it's going to help allow your nail to grow and slide out. The hyponychium is a thicker skin underneath the nail bed. And right here, the nail matrix is the area where your nails are forming and growing. Specifically, this is contributing to the formation of the nail body. Now, the nail matrix and the hyponychium, they are all a part of your nail root. So this is the area underneath, and you cannot see this with the naked eye because it's underneath the nail body and the nail bed. Okay, and this wraps up the integumentary system.